Now, next up, we have a panel that features no fewer than 4 Latin American presidents. And chairing this session and here to tell you first more about the growth of technology in Latin America. He's the CEO of Telefonica UK, which is otherwise known as O2. He's a Dublin-born businessman, so a local boy. He's as passionate about technology and entrepreneurship as he is about championing young people and his young employees. Please welcome Ronan Dunne. Welcome.
So, good afternoon, everybody. First thing to say, as I think they may have mentioned, is I'm a homeboy. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you all at this amazing gathering of the people who will define all of our futures. So it's great that we're here in Dublin, not just because it's my hometown, but Dublin is a young town. It's a city with 50% of its population under the age of 36. It's also a city that has absolutely embraced a digital future. So almost 50% of all the direct investment that comes to Ireland comes to Dublin, and as many of you will know, has some of the most impressive names in the digital world represented here: Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, AOL, eBay, Microsoft, Amazon, Yahoo. And if there's somebody in the room who I've forgotten, I apologize. But like Dublin itself, it's also important that the rest of us transform ourselves, evidence our willingness to invest both in young people and in technology to change outcomes. And that's why I'm here representing Telefonica, because we passionately believe in 2 things. We passionately believe in young people, but we passionately believe in the power of technology to make change for good. And I'll be clear, it's about enabling you guys to do a better job than people like I have in our generation, and I have incredible confidence that you can absolutely do that. So I want to talk a little bit about our global millennial survey. So first question is, what is it and why would we want to do it? So people of my age are great at talking, but how good are we at listening? So what we've done for the last 2 years in Telefonica, we've turned it around and we've said, let's go out and let's really understand what people of 18 to 30 all around the world are talking about, are thinking about, dreaming about, and worrying about. And that's the reason why we have now the results of our second global millennial survey. And you might say, but why? Well, it's enlightened self-interest. Over 1 million customers of Telefonica around the world fit into that age group of 18 to 30. And let's be clear, there's no future for our society or for my business without actively engaging that community. There are colleagues, there are customers, there are leaders, there are entrepreneurs. And importantly, if they succeed, my business will also succeed. So we're investing very practically. In Dublin, we have an incubator for startups. But we also have one in Bogota, we have one in Madrid, we have one in Barcelona, we have one in London, and all across Latin America, because we believe we should create the conditions for young people to be able to reach their own ambitions and ideally do it in their own locations. So let me just quickly run through a couple of the key themes that came out of our survey. So the first thing is good news. As a generation, you're unbelievably positive. 89% of young millennials think that their best days and those of their countries are still ahead. But interestingly, in the country that I operate in on a day-to-day basis in the UK, half of the survey millennials don't believe that the country's best days are ahead of it. Secondly, 72% believe that they have opportunities in their country to become entrepreneurs. And that's really important because very often in parts of the world, the presumption is you have to come to London or you have to go to Silicon Valley to have a real opportunity. Well, the great news is more and more people are believing that the opportunity exists within their own country. They believe in their countries and want action to help citizens. So they're worried about social mobility. They're worried about affordable housing, education, jobs, all of the things you would expect people to be worried about. But the good news is they're the same agenda that our politicians and our business leaders are concerned about as well. The challenge and the opportunity is engage all of you as future leaders in that agenda, because one of the challenges is, despite the fact that you're concerned about the same things, have the same level of ambition, actually, 80% of you have a smartphone, but 70% of young people in the UK, when asked, didn't believe that getting actively involved in politics would make any difference whatsoever, i.e. they don't believe their vote will count. So what we've got to do as the current generation of leaders is properly enable you all as a future generation of leaders, and that's where we believe in Telefonica we can help through the power of enabling technology and harnessing that technology so that you can be much more effective, and that we as an older generation can enable you to drive the change that you so passionately believe about. So you're all digitally engaged, and I would challenge the people of my generation are setting analog ambitions for our businesses and for our society and not recognizing the digital talent that exists all across the world. You're all born digital natives. We sometimes describe it as Generation Y, but in many respects it's Generation M, it's Generation Mobile. Mobile is the most enabling technology for many, many generations. It democratizes access to information, and that creates equal opportunity if it's harnessed properly. So I'm really pleased at the fact that we have a forum here where we can talk about the real challenges and opportunities that you all as a generation of millennials can focus on, and that how we, as the older generation, can create the enabling conditions for all of you to be the success you deserve to be. So, before I go any further, what I'd love to do is ask you all a question. We surveyed all across the different regions of the world, so we're going to do some interactive voting now. What I'd like to understand is, which region do you think is most optimistic about its future? So, if you can all please vote.
Now, this hasn't been working that seamlessly. We're going to see how it works now. If it doesn't turn it off and turn it back on, but you shouldn't actually need to turn them off. And you can see 1 is Asia, 2 South America, 3 North America, 4 Europe, 5 Africa, and 6 Australasia. And don't forget to press send after you vote. So it's been picking up about 800 votes a question, so some of you may be not pressing send. Let's vote. We were saying earlier, the best money-making business idea is to create one of these things that works.
It also, those of you
Are the votes working in the back? Can someone talk to me in my ear and tell me if you're getting the votes? There we go.
Okay, so our survey says Asia is where we believe is most optimistic about its future. Well, I know the answer.
Yay, Africa.
Stop being biased.
The numbers are still moving. I was going to say, for those of you who ever watch any British television, it gives me a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to now say, our survey says, and the answer is Latin America is the region which people are most positive. And you might have guessed that because in the introduction, you know that I'm now going to speak in a minute to 4 of our Latin American presidents. But before I do that, let me just give you highlights of our survey. So the first thing is higher levels of satisfaction in Latin America with life than any other millennial group, with 90% of them either very or somewhat satisfied, which is a fantastic positive energy to be able to tap into. The next thing we discovered is they're also the most optimistic, with 72% of the millennials believe that their country's best days are ahead, as opposed to about 50% in Europe and about 50% in the US. And entrepreneurial spirit. And I mentioned at the start about enabling people to be successful in a place of their choice. One of the big challenges being in the first evolution of the digital economy has been the need or the perception that people have to leave their own country to be successful entrepreneurs. Well, the fantastic news is that in LATAM, it has the highest level of entrepreneurial spirit, people who want to start their own business, and a confident belief that they can do it in their own country. And actually, those with a belief in wanting to start their own business is double that in Europe. So really, really positive messages coming from Latin America, and overall very positive messages coming from all across the world. But don't just take my word for it or Telefonica's survey word for it. We're just going to roll a video of somebody who you all recognize, but you won't always remember, is actually one of you. He is a young millennial. So let's roll the video.
Nací en 1986 en Manacor, Mallorca. En estos 28 años han cambiado muchas cosas, no solo en mi vida, también en todo el mundo. En los años 80, Internet era algo de lo que muy poca gente había oído hablar. Los que hablaban inglés sabían que un tweet era el sonido de un pájaro y phishing era algo que hacías con una caña o una red de pescar. Ahora, gracias al alto nivel de conectividad del que disfrutamos, todo ha cambiado. Mi generación, la generación del milenio, los que tenemos entre 18 y 30 años, contamos con oportunidades difíciles de imaginar hace unos años. Pero al mismo tiempo hay grandes retos y barreras que superar. En los últimos años he tenido la suerte de jugar torneos en Argentina, Brasil, Chile, México y Perú. Estos viajes me han permitido conocer mejor la región y disfrutar de su comida, sus paisajes, su historia. Pero lo que más me gusta sin duda es la energía y la pasión de su gente. De hecho, en el estudio Millennials se demuestra el alto nivel de optimismo, ambición y espíritu emprendedor de los jóvenes latinoamericanos. Me gustaría felicitar a Telefónica por realizar un año más este estudio que nos ofrece una visión única sobre cómo es la generación del milenio, los líderes del mañana. Yo os diría, pensad a lo grande. Pensad a lo grande sobre vuestra vida. ¿Qué queréis conseguir y qué queréis aportar? Trabajad duro, divertíos y haced vuestros sueños realidad.
So, muchas gracias, Rafa. And the message is really very clear. People in Latin America and all across the world, people of your generation, believe that technology and innovation is going to be key to all our futures. And with the 80% of you owning a smartphone, access to information in order to empower those dreams is more effective than ever. What we have to do is make sure that we don't leave it for you to do it on your own. We have to, and you have to challenge us to harness existing leadership, whether that be business leadership or governments, to support you, to invest in you, to invest in the education systems that support you, so that you can all be the absolute success that you all deserve to be. So now what I'd like to do is open up this to a slightly wider debate and get not just my views, but those of some people who have real experience from Latin America. So what I'd like to do is welcome now and join me on stage former President Toledo from Peru, former President Ardito-Barletta from Panama, former President Fox from Mexico, and former President Pastrana from Colombia. Please, so thank you all, presidents, for joining us today. We heard a little bit from Rafa, and we heard a little bit of the comments from our own millennial survey, but can I suggest first that I just invite you all to just say a very few introductory words. President Toledo.
My name is Alejandro Toledo. I was born at 4,500 meters above sea level in extreme poverty. And I'm a a result of a statistical error, and so I was successful. The reason why I'm here, because the youth is my hope for the future, based on decisions that need to be made yesterday. I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you. President Ardito-Barletta.
Yes, I'm Nicolas Ardito-Barletta from Panama. I'm still very much young and hard, like you are. So I share the experience with all of you, and I relish the opportunity to be here with you. I don't know how short a message we should give. Let me just say things that you already know. This is a world of permanent change, and you're going to be the future leaders of that world over the next 50 years. Help guide the process to freedom and responsibility. To create a world of law, a world of understanding, to guide the globalization process for healthy integration. We have tremendous challenges: climate, food, water, oceans. You have heard about and will continue to hear about them. Sustain values on opportunity with inclusion and with justice. We in Latin America still have a major challenge. We still have a range of poor people not fully included into our society. And for all of you that are Latin Americans, we have to work hard at doing so. So these are some of the ideas that we want to work on, but above all, we have to continue sharing in understanding, in diversity, in our cultural environments, and we have to sustain a moral fiber of humanity, whichever religion we come from, whichever culture we come from, enrich ourselves, just like you are doing here yourselves, by knowing each other, by connecting with each other, and by fully realizing that we are one world, one humanity under God. Thank you.
Thank you, President. President Fox.
Vicente Fox, coming from Mexico. My life has been divided in 4 quarters, just like a football game. 15 years in family and school, 15 years in a global corporation, the Coca-Cola Company, 15 years in a small business and ranching in Mexico, 15 years in politics, and still looking for the 5th quarter in my life, and it has to do with leadership. We understand leadership as something that we are all born with. Unfortunately, many of us do not discover that leadership and grow through life in mediocrity. So it's indispensable. It is a must that we go within ourselves to learn who we are, what are we in this life for, and what is our purpose. And purpose, I think, is the most important of all things that human beings do through their own lives. To have purpose is indispensable to have a happy life. So discover your leadership, be aware of the enormous capacities that we all have to change this world, have heroic aspirations, and keep committed with them all along through your own lives.
President Pastrana.
My name is Andrés Pastrana. I'm from Colombia. Maybe my life is a little bit different of my 3 friends here. I'm a lawyer by profession. When I finished my law school, I started my news program. I was a journalist. And then I decided to go in politics. I'm a survivor of a kidnapping of the Medellin cartel. As you will know, Pablo Escobar was the leader of the largest and most criminal cartel in the world. I was the first political kidnapping of this cartel. I survived my kidnapping with Escobar. Then I ran for president, but again, the drug lords put $15 million in the campaign of my adversary, President Samper. I lost the election. Then I decided to run again, and I won the election in 1998. And since then, or since I started my news program, I've been a fighter against narco-trafficking, narco-terrorism, and looking forward as president, the first huge experiment to try to achieve peace in Colombia. Yesterday, they were saying, why should be involved in politics? Doing politics in Colombia is not easy. But we have to be involved in politics, because otherwise, all the people are going to make the changes that we want to make. And that's why I invite you today, really, to get involved in politics. It doesn't matter if it's in the private sector, but you have to think, what do you want for you? What do you want for your country? What do you want for children, your grandchildren? And that's why I think we all should get that responsibility, or inside government or outside government. And yesterday, Kate said at dinner something that I think is very important. I hope that from this wonderful meeting of young people, the next Madiba will be born from here. Thank you. Thank you.
So from the survey, what we realized is that young people, people between 18 and 30 in Latin America, really believe in a philosophy that we espouse in Telefonica, which is think big. And the ambition and the commitment to innovation and change, leadership and positivity about growth right across Latin America is absolutely exceptional and a real positive opportunity for this generation. However, in the coming decades, it's anticipated that the population of Latin America will age rapidly. Therefore, we have a critical opportunity. The time to invest in youth is now. So what I want to do as part of that investment is to open this session out to questions and to invite delegates from the floor to ask their questions. I understand now the mics are outside, and the first question is coming from Francesca from Peru.
Latin America is experiencing an important economic growth, which is even resulting in an increase of international influence of the region, which is actually great for us. Yet, this economic growth is not solving one of the biggest challenges I think we face as Latin Americans, which is inequality. So how can Latin America eventually become a stable economic powerhouse when there still exists such a big inequality between the rich and the poor?
So can I ask President Toledo to start? Thank you.
2 weeks ago, I concluded a book at Stanford University about Latin America and the world, looking at it by the year 2050. And I'm very optimistic. I think Latin America is one of the most promising regions in the world, particularly in the context of the financial crisis in Europe and a low rate of economic growth in the United States. We have everything. I don't know if it's a punishment or a blessing that God has put us too many natural resources in Latin America. Now, we need to invest in the minds of our people, because natural resources are finite. Not only that, but it contaminates the environment and makes it even worse, the climate change issue. Second, economic growth is a mean, not an end. We need to grow, but to distribute the benefits of growth. Not by giving fish away to the poor people, but rather to provide them the right to learn how to fish. And that is why I'm very enthusiastic of being over here. The world does not have only a crisis in the financial area. There's a crisis of leadership. And so this event, it is so propitious with the young people to fill the vacuum of leadership. Leadership not only to solve the problems of today, but don't let anyone to wake you up from your dreams with your eyes open about what will be the profile of your life by the year 2050, 35 years from now, when your kids, when the children of your children will have to confront not only energy crisis, but we will have a wars about clean drinking water. We'll have a war about food security, because we will be 9 billion people in the world by 2050. And we will have a challenge of meeting climate change. And climate change does not have a nationality. Finally, Latin America is promising. If we have the capacity to reduce the level of poverty, inequality, exclusion, and discrimination. I'm optimistic, but here are the challenges. And thank God we have you, the young people. Please don't be a comfortable observer of what happens in our respective countries. Be an actor, be a leader. Don't let your destiny on the hands of politicians. Be a leader and make less politics, and be a successful leader in whatever area you choose. Latin America will be a major player in the world economy and sustainable development, provided that we meet these challenges. And that means making the decisions yesterday, thinking about the year 2050, and I'm sure in this room. You that were born during the cybernetic era. I was born in poverty. I didn't have the opportunity that you have. You can be a leader in whatever you choose. You can be a president, men and women, in your respective country. I dream to the day where a poor woman from Africa, from Latin America, will become a president of their respective countries. Good luck to you.
Thank you, President. And thank you, Francesca. I think the next question is coming from Camilla.
Hi, my name is Tafan, and I'm from Kurdistan. I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm 20 years old. I recently held lectures in 16 villages for young kids about leadership, but I tried to adjust it for them because of their age. So I'm trying to connect this question of mine to the previous panel who was sitting. We were asking them, can entrepreneurship be taught? If yes, how and should it be? So I'm asking you guys, can leadership be taught? And if yes, how?
So, President Pastrana, maybe you'd like to start. Can leadership be taught?
I think you have to understand leadership, two sides of the coin. One, I think the leadership is very natural. I think something that comes inside from you. Trying to create a company, try to get involved in politics, try to do social work, try to get involved in your society, something that becomes natural, I think. It's something that it's inside from you. It's what your gut feeling of what you really want to do or you really want to achieve. But on the other side, today, I think there's a lot of tools that could be used in promoting leadership or what you think about leadership. Tools what we didn't have. I think in our case now, all the social media. Now, when we start politics, I remember if you want to promote an idea, to try to communicate to your community, you need to have friends in the media, friends on the radio, on the newspapers. Now a Twitter, it's more important than an interview in a newspaper or a regional newspaper in our countries. Now you have those tools that it's the way really to get more involved and get your ideas through to the largest communities and to the world. One tweet today, yesterday we were tweeting photographs of one young world, and everybody was seeing that we were here, that we were going to have this meeting today. So I think that it's something that today has changed, and it's a tool that you should use. So I think that's two ways of being a leader. No? One, I think it's yourself. If you want to do something, it's something, and I said in politics, and I think that three former presidents agree with me, when you're running for a public post, people know really if you want or if you don't want really to be elected for that post. People really understand you and see in your eyes if you're really committed on the ideas you are proposing. So I think this is something that it's very important, that it's something that comes from your inside to be a leader in any aspect of your life. But I think it's something that is natural, but on the other side, today, I think there are a lot of different tools that could be used in promoting this leadership, not only in your community, but around your country or around the world.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. Why don't we go up top right for the next question?
Thank you. My name is Camila Dominguez. I'm from Colombia. And I would like to ask, like, knowing the actual situation of corruption in our Latin American countries, how do you think, because of the fear that we as young people feel about getting involved with this corruption, how can we fight against the corruption, not only in politics, but in all the sectors?
So I think, if I interpret the question, how can we give young people the courage to fight corruption? And what I'd like to do is get a comment from all of you, but President Pastrana, as somebody who survived a kidnapping, which is probably the most personal experience of corruption that any of us around here could imagine, maybe you'd like to start, and then I'll ask the rest of the presidents.
I think that what happened in Colombia, I think that, as Camila is saying, we have a curse in Colombia of narco-trafficking. I think one of the worst problems we have today in the world is narco-trafficking because, first of all, corrupt the whole society. One of the problems that we had in Colombia is that we had the largest cartels of the drug in the world. As I said in my introduction, a president of Colombia was elected with resources from narco-trafficking. That's something that we never supposed and we never imagined, that narco-trafficking President Ernesto Samper was bought by the Cali cartel, the president of Colombia. And the third thing is how these cartels are corrupting our young generation in our country. Let me tell you stories. We have in Colombia boys from 15 to 18 years old called the sicarios. There are contracted by the drug lords because our law in Colombia, boys under 18 years old, they cannot go to jail. So they use these little boys to assassinate politicians, policemen, military, judges. And this easy money, now in these poor neighborhoods of many of the cities of Colombia, is one of the worst problems that we are having. So that's why I think we should still fight corruption and still fight narco-trafficking, because it's the one that is really not only corrupting our societies. You see what happened with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, with the FARC, with the ELN in Colombia. They are all financed by narco-trafficking. That's why I started using many years ago a word talking about narco-terrorism, because terrorism in the world is financed by drugs. Drugs is the largest business in the world after oil. Drugs is a business of a $500 billion business. And that's why you could see all this corruption in the countries in which drug is involved. But I want to point now here to you young people, young leaders of the world, an additional point of drugs that nobody talks about it, and it's the damage that the drug it's doing to the environment. I'm going to tell you the story of Colombia. Colombia is the second largest country in biodiversity, the second one. We have destroyed in the past 10 years 1.5 million hectares of rainforest to cultivate coca. And if you see the map of Colombia, all the coca labs are located on the rivers of my country, that the rivers of Colombia are the affluents of the water, for example, to Venezuela and to other countries. And I don't know how cocaine is done. They use permanganatum of potassium, sulfuric acid, gasoline, brick powder, cement. And when all the process of the coca is done, where all these chemical precursors go? To these rivers. And these are the rivers that go to the Amazon basin. And these are the rivers that go through Venezuela. Only remember that 60% of the oxygen of the world is produced by the Amazon basin. So if we destroy the Amazon basin, what's going to happen to the oxygen here in Europe? And that's also is happening because they are corrupting the indigenous communities. They are giving money to the indigenous communities so that they cultivate crops, coca crops, and we are destroying our environment. And that's why I always said that the world we need to unite in fighting this common enemy, that it's narco-trafficking, and we hope that we all united, all the world united, we could defeat narco-trafficking as one of the worst enemy of the whole world.
Thank you. For the young people out here, and I'll open it to all of you, is so we know that corruption is a reality, not just in Latin America, in Europe, America, everywhere. So that challenge to the question for young people, how can we give them the confidence? What could we say to show them that not only do we want them to stay on the right path, but we can give them the belief that they can go on that right path and they can be supported? President Fox?
Thank you. Yeah, corruption is not a matter of regions, nations, families, sectors. I guess, unfortunately, is widely spread around. It's not easy to fight corruption, and especially those who think that getting rid of corruption has to start with government. I think it has to start with education. If we all human beings don't have our own limits in our behavior, if we are not educated in principles, values that will give us the capacity to stay out of corruption, it's going to be very, very difficult to end up with it. I think Latin America took a great step forward the day that we decided for democracy. And this day is very recent. As you know, we went through the 20th century in that region in hands of dictators, in hands of military dictators, in hands of authoritarian governments, and all of that reduced the capacity to build up citizenship. So we stayed childish. We were always expecting from the powerful not only the job, the food, the income, the school, the health, but also the behavior. And so Latin America is very recent. Only the last 2 decades of 20th century, we've been democratic nations, most of us. So we're learning, and we're learning fast. And I think that's the first step towards defeating corruption is democracy. It's accountability. It's transparency that comes associated with democracy. But if we don't get involved enough on stopping corruption, and we, I mean the citizens, the people, the business community, the academics, the schools, we are not going to be able to finish with it. And there's a huge waste of resources And I understand that people get mad, that people get desperate, but I think it's in the hands of all of us to stop this evil that is so widely spread throughout the world.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time. I would just add that one of the great tools that's been provided in recent years to enforce that democracy is the transparency that's afforded by access to information, the ultimate democratization, and that's something that all of you know how to use to hold all of us to account. Let me go here for the next question, please.
My name is Karina Fariña from Venezuela. The stabilization in my country is in a critical level. We have the highest levels of inflation, the highest of violence, the highest of the problems with involved society systems that break barriers. So my question is, what should be the positions of the other Latin American countries against my country's problems, the real one?
So how do you work together as a common force for good to help everybody to make the progress that some of your own countries have already seen? Would you like to start, President Toledo?
Yes. I'm an Indian warrior, fighter for democracy, freedom, human rights, and freedom of expression. I have the privilege to be condecorated in Venezuela as declared persona non grata because I fight dictatorship, censorship, those who persecute people because of their belief. It's a condecoration to me. I have to don't let people to silence your voice. Don't let people to fight for what you believe. Don't let people, even the highest authorities, to give you fish away because they have oil revenues. Ask them for your right to learn how to fish because the oil is going to be finite. Don't let the inmaduro take away your freedom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Finally, I ask the head of the states of Latin America not to be silent about what happens in the states that are authoritarian, because their silence could be interpreted and should be interpreted as a complicity with those who take away your freedom.
Thank you. Thank you, President Pastrana.
I completely agree with President Toledo, and I think we have been in this fight because we were very worried that Latin America abandoned Venezuela. That is what's happening. It's not possible that they have killed more than 40 students in Venezuela. There are in prison today more than 2,500 students, young people, and the world is not saying anything of what is happening in Venezuela. One question, Alejandro. Venezuela, President Maduro, violating human rights, killing students in the streets because they are against what is happening in his own country. That President Maduro is closing all the medias. You don't have paper to print the newspaper. The different medias, TV, bought by the same people of the government. And then one of the questions we should ask is, Venezuela is wanting to aspire of one of the seat of the Security Council in the United Nations. Is that possible? Can Venezuela be sitting down there when that government had under his shoulder the death of more than 50 students, 2,500 prisoners? Can they represent us, the world, the Democrats of this world, in the Security Council? I don't think so.
Thank you. President Ardito-Barletta.
I want to say first that I share your pain. Unfortunately, you have a government that praises democracy but does not believe in democracy and does not want democracy at the end. You have a government that talks about private sector economics but really doesn't believe in private sector economics, doesn't understand economics whatsoever, and wants really to create a socialist state. And that's very unfortunate. And we need to continue encouraging the people of Venezuela to react to that and to fight for their rights as much as possible. Because what's going on is a sham. And I can assure you that you have the support of most people in the rest of Latin America.
Thank you.
And we need to continue creating conscience of what's going on with the courage of you people and to support you in your fight to defend a true democracy which these people don't really believe in. And they are trying to change gradually but surely into another kind of government. So you can count with our support.
I'd like to use the issue a little bit for a reflection that we should do together. Why this happened in Venezuela and it happening in other nations within Latin America. Demagoguery, populism has taken advantage of democracy. These two gorillas came to power through democratic processes. And so we must be aware and conscious to be careful that in the future we avoid situations like this. And at the very end, these young democracies in Latin America still have to experience much more because for the moment we have problems like this, and until we reach the point to have illustrated middle classes in our nations, strong middle classes, and a strong citizenship, this might be repeating once and again through different nations in Latin America. And of course, I make the same call to those institutions that are the safeguards of democracy to be very careful in their judgment, because frequently they say, I cannot do anything different, I cannot take a position because they came to power through democratic means. So we're trapped in our own arguments, and it's difficult to get out of them. At the very end, Venezuela is in a profound, problematic situation. And I also invite all Venezuelans outside of Venezuela to join in together, because there is a lot of diverse micro efforts, macro disintegrated. The voice of those democratic Venezuelans has to be heard throughout the world, in United Nations, in the Organization of American States, in United States, and so many institutions that can press for a change that is badly needed.
So I'm conscious of time. I will come back to you in a second. Let me take a question from the top up here.
Hello, my name is Dylan Kaplan. I'm from Washington, D.C. in the United States. Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. So everyone in this room wants to learn from you. We want to learn from each of you. And obviously, again, our time is limited. So then the one question I have is, I believe what people read says a lot about who you are. So the question I have is, what is the most meaningful book you've ever read, and why would you recommend that book to us? Thank you.
Great question. And short answers, please, and then hopefully I'll get one more question in. So, President Toledo, do you want to start? Best book, most impact.
Muhammad Yunus, about poverty and the Bank of the Poor. You people have in your pocket, I'm sure, an iPad or an iPhone. So you are inundated already with information. I would like to reflect now in the future. Never has been so propitious the initiative of Kate and Bob to organize the One Young World. Because knowledge is accessible to you through the media. But we have the responsibility to think about the future. Because this is the one that you are going to construct, that you are going to build. Whatever you choose to be a leader. The reason why I think Muhammad Yunus, because he, like me, he with much more merits than I, have decided to abandon a comfortable life of a successful career to trying to work for the poor. I'm not only a fighter for democracy, for freedom. And democracy is not just an election. To be elected is not sufficient. We need to govern democratically. But we have decided to dedicate our lives to fight poverty, inequality, and discrimination. And I don't know any more effective weapon to kill poverty, inequality, than a quality of education. Had it not be for education, I would not have the privilege to be with you today.
I'm going to change your question and give you a reflection from the Latin American experience. As long as we have between 25 and 50% of our people that do not participate nor benefit from democracy, as we understand it, Western style, democracy is not stable. And that's part of the example we have seen in some Latin American countries. Venezuela is a case in point. As long as we have between 20 and 40% of our people not sharing the benefits of a market economy, as we understand it, is in peril and is not stable in Latin America. We have to include all of our people in the process of development. We have to believe in human development. As long as 56, 57% of the poor in Latin America are younger than 20 years of age, we have our work cut out for ourselves. You as future leaders in Latin America, in Africa, in other countries, we need to focus on developing our young people. So within a generation's time, we can get rid of poverty through leadership of the whole society.
Thank you, President. We'll take one last question.
Hi, my name is Tendi. I'm from South Africa. Recently, we just had our elections in South Africa, and while I was talking to most young people, they were not actually interested in who's going to be president and who's voting. And I think mostly it's the misconception of state leadership, governmental leadership, or political leadership. So as cliche as it sounds, to me, political leadership is more of serving the nation. You're an employee of the nation. You represent the nation. But I would like to know from your point of view, what does being president mean to you? What did you go into looking to do, and what did you, when you got there, did it change? And as now, has it changed thus far, and how and has it developed from the original plan when you actually got into presidency?
So I'm going to ask President Fox to start, but just to summarize, another way of putting the same question is, what is it that you have achieved in your presidency that you're most proud of? And let's do that very quickly to each of you, because that's the essence of the question. President Fox.
Let me recommend a book. And it's serious. Infinitive progress that you can get through Amazon, and you will learn how, when poverty will be defeated, hunger will be defeated, our lives are going to be extended within the 21st century up to 130 years, which is going to be the expectancy of life within this century, and how many other wonderful things are coming through the power of a mobile in our hands and the capacity to connect with the cloud and get all the knowledge accumulated of humankind throughout the centuries, throughout the millennia. Today, each one of us has that power. Presidents also dream. And as they were elected, we dream. How are we going to change things in our nations? I would say most presidents have extremely good and positive dreams, but it's not so easy to change a nation. I would say, and with this I finish, the only way to change a nation in one generation is through education. And that's a long-term deal, but once you have it, you did it.
Thank you, President. I'm conscious we're running out of time, so I'm going to steal the last 30 seconds to wrap up before I thank you all. But I think there's a message here, and it relates to the last question, but it relates to all of them, is the President represents young people who've chosen never to lose their dream and continue to dream and believe in their entire careers. The challenge and the opportunity for every one of you is to understand that you have new tools to make your passions more deliverable. It is the tool of technology. It's the democratization of access to information to hold all of us to account. But you also have one other thing that comes clearly out of the Millennial Survey is you believe in doing well and doing good at the same time. People of our generation are now at the point where we're thinking about doing good. So harness us and make sure that we have two generations who are driving to make this world a better place together. Thank you to all of the presidents, and thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you.